Hello, fellow rebel capitalists. I hope you are well. I've got a good story here to end the day. I think you guys are going to enjoy this one. Let's cut right over to Zero Hedge and check it out. Southwest to comply with Biden's medicine order. Ignore Texas ban. This isn't the good part. This is the bad part. just FYI. So, Dallas-based Southwest Airlines will ignore the Texas executive order prohibiting any entity from imposing mandates on customers or employees. If you didn't see that, the governor of Texas, and what is the governor's name there? Governor Greg Abbott. On Monday, yesterday, he issued an executive order saying that he prohibits businesses from imposing any type of medicine mandate on their employees or customers. He ends by saying that he's encouraging everyone to go out there and get the medicine, but it should be an individual's choice. It makes a lot of sense. So going, oh man, that's the thing I hate about Zero Hedge. They have so many ads and they just pop up there, drive me nuts. But let's keep moving on here. This is a quote from the CEO of Southwest Airlines. And he says, "I've never been in favor of corporations imposing that kind of mandate. I'm not in favor of that. Never have been," Kelly told Squawk on the Street, adding, "But the executive order from the president mandates that all federal employees and then all federal contractors, which covers all the major airlines." I'm not sure how. How are they? Okay. So I'd have to look into that one a little bit further. Obviously, the federal employees would have nothing to do with Southwest Airlines. So it seems they're a contractor of the United States. I'm not sure how, but I don't know. If I'm the CEO, I would ask myself, okay, how much is that contract worth? And maybe it's a matter of or doing a cost benefit analysis on maybe canceling that contract. Who knows what's going on behind the scenes? But I think what this really boils down to, it's not about government contracts. It's really about government bailouts. And if I'm the CEO of an airline, you've got to know, you've got to understand that you are in an incredibly precarious position. And I would not want to be in one of these guys' shoes at all. So think about it. You've got an economy that's absolutely horrible. You've got a company that run on razor thin margins. I mean, razor thin, meaning that if you've got a plane with, let's just throw a number out there, say 100 seats on it, and your profit is going to be maybe 4 or 5 of those seats. So if you're running at 80% occupancy, meaning 20 of the seats are vacant, that flight's going to lose money. And I think most people would be astonished at how little the airlines make on each flight. I was reading an article, this was years ago, but if my memory serves me correctly, it was only maybe $200 or $300 on a flight. And that's if it's at a high capacity. If it's at, let's say, 97% or something like that. And most of the money they make is on the first class tickets. So what happens is the way they make so much money, though, is they just have a 1,000 flights a day. And if you make $300 on 1,000 flights a day or 5,000 or whatever it is going all across the country, then that adds up over time. But my point is they're in this razor thin margin business that's very precarious because of the political environment right now and the government's response to the cerveza sickness. So at any point in time, they could go from making a profit to taking huge quarterly losses. And if they take those losses, they probably don't have the reserves because of 2020, 2021. And therefore, they would have to go back to the government with their tails between their legs and just beg for another government handout or some sort of bailout from the Federal Reserve. And if you're a CEO of an airline company, you know that there's a decent probability that this scenario will play out in the future, especially with the Biden administration. And so, how do you hedge your bets? What you have to do is you have to sit there and bow down to the overlords. You have to bow down to the central planners and the politicians and do whatever they want you to do, or whatever their narrative, whatever it is they're trying to push, you have to go along with it, because the last thing you want is to be left out in the cold. If the economy tanks due to what's happening with the Federal Reserve, or what's happening with the administration, what's happening with the politicians distorting the economy, and therefore, when all the other airlines go get a bailout, Biden sits back and says, yes, yes, yes. Ooh, Southwest Airline? No, not going to do it. Sorry. And of course, they'd make up some excuse as to why they wouldn't get a bailout. It would be very similar to the retribution that we saw from the Obama administration with Standard and Poor's when they downgraded their debt. I believe that was in 2011. And sure enough, 2012, 2013, the government comes and slaps them with a $1.5 billion fine. Why? The GFC, going back to 2008, 2009. But obviously, to anyone paying attention, anyone over the age of 5 years old, it was to get back at them for downgrading the U.S. debt. So you've got a government that's proven that they're very vindictive. And if you're one of these CEOs, do you want to roll the dice with that? So I'm not making excuses for these guys, but I'm saying that this is most likely the position they're in, which is why he's taking the stance that, hey, I'm not in favor of it, but I don't have a choice because we're a contractor. I think that's a neat way of kind of wiggling out of actually telling the truth and say, I don't have a choice because we're going to need, or we're most likely going to need another bailout. And I've got to be in good favor with those people who are dishing out the stimmies, or those people who are dishing out all of the bailout packages, or all the quote unquote free money. So then we can see some tweets that reference this. Southwest CEO blames Biden for mandate. I'm not, and then same thing here. I'm not in favor of it, never have been, but executive order from President Biden mandates federal employees and federal contractors. In addition to the federal workers and contractors, Biden announced last month, which mandate last month that requires the businesses with over 100 employees. We know about that. They got around this through OSHA. This is not even close to constitutional. But right now, we are living in a country that has turned into a country of men. And we have abandoned our core principles in being a country of law. And like John Adams warned us a long time ago, that is going to come back to haunt you in the long run. So another tweet here from Sean Davis, another lie. There's no, well, this is something that's an interesting concept. There's actually no mandate because they can't technically do it. It was more of a press release and everyone just assumes that it is so. But again, regardless of whether it was actual law or not, the CEOs would still be in the same position where they have to go along with it because it's what Biden wants. Because if they don't, then they're going to be left in the cold when it comes time for the next round of stimmies or bailouts. So now, when we saw this story break with the mainstream media, they're obviously blaming it on the weather and everything else. But now it's coming out that even the CEO is blaming absenteeism. And whether this was a coordinated effort or not, the bottom line is people aren't showing up to work. And it's most likely because they're just being pushed too far. and they look at their 20 years of service, and they see the corporate the head CEO or upper management or even the administration or the institutions just treating them as though they're just trash, that they could be thrown off to the side of the road and that they really don't matter, that their opinions, their the way they measure their own risk reward, their freedom, their liberty, their ability to make choices for themselves, that just doesn't matter. And regardless of whether or not they've been loyal to a company for the past 20 years, they're just going to be disposed of like they were there for the last 20 days, that they never gave that type of service. They never gave really 20 years of their life to a company. In a moment's notice, that can all be forgotten and they can be treated as though they were public enemy number one. So my point is it any surprise that even if this isn't a coordinated effort, that Southwest has so many employees just on their own calling in saying, "Hey, I'm not showing up to work today," to where it would affect them to the point where they'd have to cancel a lot of these flights. But here's the good news. And when I saw this picture, this it made me feel good. I'll be honest. This is from Benny Johnson, not sure who he is, but he said this photo was just sent to me off a grounded Southwest plane flying a Gadsden flag out of the cockpit. Or it's I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but it's the "Don't tread on me" with the rattlesnake. That's what I always call it. The hero pilots of Southwest and other airlines deserve our support. True patriots, worthy of American freedom fighting tradition. Don't tread on me. God bless them. And you look at that picture, and that's pretty darn cool. I like that. And I just want to state, for what it's worth, those people, not just at Southwest Airlines, but everywhere around the country, who are standing up and fighting for freedom and really taking a monetary sacrifice, and often a bigger sacrifice than that they're having to completely change their life. I mean, another thing that comes to mind are these basketball players. The one individual who has been suspended by the basketball team in New York just because he refuses to get the medicine. I mean, who knows how many millions of dollars he will lose. Now, I understand that he's probably got millions of dollars in a bank, a little bit different, but it's probably even more so impactful on those nurses, those pilots, those flight attendants who don't have millions of dollars in the bank, but yet they're still standing up for freedom. They're still fighting the good fight. And I think when we look back on this in 20, 30 years, that it will be blatantly obvious that these individuals are on the right side of or were on the right side of history. All right, Josh, we got any super chats, my friend? Let's go, Brandon. That's right. That's right. And this is a reference to this news story where the gal was interviewing some guy in NASCAR, or one of the stock car drivers. I don't know which category it was, and his name was Brandon. And everyone in the background was chanting "F Joe Biden," and it was obvious what they were chanting. But then the reporter who's doing the story says, "Oh, look at that! They're chanting 'Let's go, Brandon.'" And it's just comical. It's absolutely hilarious. But I was listening to Tim Pool the other night, who's fantastic. Got a great live show. I'd highly suggest you guys check it out. It's at, I think, Timcast IRL. But they were saying that if Trump comes back, that should be his new slogan. Instead of "Make America Great Again," it should be "Let's go, Brandon," because that just says everything that you need to know about the state of the world in which we live today. And that should be the battle cry for all of the deplorables and all of the average Joe and Janes that value freedom more than they value safety, and want to stand up to this tyrannical global group of global elite politicians and institutions that we're dealing with today. And I want to be clear, I'm not a huge fan of Trump. I think he's hilarious, but I didn't really like his policies at all. I think he's one of the main reasons we have so much inflation today. But again, right now, it's my main priority is making sure that we move away from the authoritarians. It's not so much about the left and the right anymore. It's about authoritarians versus freedom fighters, or said another way, going back to 1776 and the Revolutionary War, it's about the Tories and the Patriots. And the Patriots, in my opinion, are going to be on the right side of freedom when we look back at 2021, just like they're on the right side, or excuse me, they're on the right side of history when we look back at 2021, just like they're on the right side of history when we look back on the 1770s and the 1780s. Okay, guys, enjoy the rest of your afternoon or your evening, and we'll see you on the next video.